is compassion. The politics is purpose.
You may be termed out here, but does cleaning up the streets of California factor into a potential presidential run?
I'm never going to overpromise that in the short run. I mean, we are struggling in this state.
You're not answering my question.
Homelessness. No, housing and homelessness.
So the piece that I published is titled Newsom's National Model for Homeless, Racked by Fraud. It's published for Real Clear Investigations. There's original reporting in there. This is actual journalism. It's not just me commenting. In fact, I'm not allowed to share.
Something wild just went down. Anna Kasparian didn't just debate Gavin Newsom. She tossed him into a rhetorical tornado, slammed the gas, and strolled away like it was nothing. What started as a routine political back and forth quickly spiraled into a masterclass of savage comebacks, awkward silence, and one governor flailing for a way out. Kasparian didn't let him off easy. Every dodged question, every overhyped talking point, she tore apart with surgical precision. Newsom's carefully rehearsed lines crumbled mid-sentence, leaving him grasping for air while Anna calmly delivered fact after fact, punch after punch. If you love chaos, cold, hard accountability, and moments so brutal you can't help but gasp and laugh, strap in, because the ending hits like a ton of bricks. By the time she was done, it wasn't just a debate. It was a spectacle, a masterclass in calling out polished political performance for what it really is. Empty words dressed up as leadership.
To support building more reservoirs in the state in order to bulk up our water infrastructure because we live in a drought-prone state. That passed in 2014. Funding was attached to it. You want to know how many reservoirs have been built since 2014? Zero. This state is an utter joke because of the people who are governing it. Gavin Newsom right now.
Somewhere in the endless multiverse of political swagger, Gavin Newsom woke up that day thinking it would be another easy cruise. Polished talking points, flattering lights, and the comforting illusion that charm could pass for actual policy. But Anna Kasparian had other plans. She didn't just show up to debate. She came armed with facts, fire, and the kind of precision that turns rehearsed charm into exposed scaffolding. Every glib line, every practiced smile, every carefully staged anecdote Newsom relied on was peeled back under her spotlight, leaving him blinking like a deer caught in headlights. That IT wasn't subtle. It wasn't polite. It was a demolition job disguised as discourse. And the worst part for Newsom? The audience saw it all. Awkward pauses, flustered pivots, and the faint whiff of panic as Anna methodically dismantled his narrative. Charm, gone. Confidence, shattered. The illusion of mastery, reduced to rubble.
When I signed on to criminal justice reform, what I thought I was signing on to was we're going to reform our prisons. But the idea of, oh, we're just not going to punish anyone for pretty much anything is not what I thought I was signing up for. But that's pretty much what we've gotten. And preemptively shutting down, 4 to 5 state prisons without really having a plan in place for what happens to oftentimes violent inmates was a disastrous idea by Gavin Newsom.
Newsom tries his usual moves. A smile here, a hand gesture there, a slick phrase he thought would land. But Anna isn't impressed. She slices through each line with surgical precision, turning charm into exposure and talking points into confetti. The audience, they're leaning in, eyes wide, popcorn forgotten. Every pause, every stumble, every little pivot Newsom tries only makes the contrast sharper. Practiced politician versus relentless truth machine. Be by the time the segment ends, the takeaway is clear. Anna didn't just debate him. She highlighted every flaw, every hesitation, every weak pivot. And Newsom, he's left to retreat behind a facade of calm, knowing full well the clip will live forever online, replayed as a masterclass in cold account.
People are going to get mad at me for saying this, but I genuinely feel there isn't much. I don't know who the next leader of this party is going to be. Everyone is kind of singing the praises of Gavin Newsom. I live in California. He's the governor here. He's a disaster of epic proportions. Right. Most Americans don't know that yet. But if he's going to be the leader of the opposition, and if he's the Democratic candidate in 2028, I think this country's in a lot of trouble.
Newsom tries to charm, tossing out rehearsed lines like bookmarks in a book he hasn't read. Anna doesn't flinch. She lets the sentences hang for a beat, then gently, methodically, dismantles them, like pointing out every typo in a manuscript he thought was Pulitzer-worthy. There's no yelling, no theatrics, just quiet precision that lands harder than any loud critique could. The audience feels it instantly. Every wink and pause from Newsom looks increasingly desperate. What was supposed to be confidence now reads like uncertainty scribbled in the margins. By the time she's done, it's clear this isn't a debate. It's a masterclass in calmly, efficiently exposing every weak link. And the clips? Already primed for social media, because subtlety burns longest online.
I don't know if I can.
Please,
Okay.
you must. It's a necessity.
So, Democratic establishment candidates are full of shit. And I need people to understand that. And we need to get out of this like vicious pendulum swing cycle where we go from one terrible administration to another terrible administration. They just have different branding. But in the end, they do nothing for ordinary people. And that's what people are hungry for. I think that's part of what explains.
Newsom's polish starts to crack. His cinematic speeches, once smooth like butter on toast, now slide off the edge. Anna doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. Every calm question is a scalpel, cutting away the gloss to reveal the raw, messy truth underneath. That sounds good, Governor, but what about the measurable outcomes? She asks, voice steady, eyes locked suddenly. The room feels smaller. Gavin's practiced rhythm stutters. Words he thought were airtight now hang awkwardly, dangling like Christmas lights on a windy night. He leans back, recalculates mid-sentence, tries charm. But Anna's relentless. Each question nudges closer to the weak spots, budgets, timelines, results he's promised, but not delivered to be by minute 5. The narrative shifts. The energy subtly moves from Gavin's world of cinematic inspiration to Anna's realm of accountability. The audience senses it, confidence fading, abstraction failing, reality taking the wheel. And all the while, Anna doesn't yell. She doesn't pontificate. She simply exposes, one quiet, surgical cut at a time.
Just keep our own money and then we wouldn't need all your stupid programs.
That's right. There's actually something called the corruption tax. It's not a real tax, but it's actually there. We pay more than we need to because of the corruption that politicians engage in.
There's a lot of BS out there about how it's working, when in reality it's not. We already have 2 federal criminal indictments related to this program.
I call it the unholy trinity of Gavin Newsom. You have the homelessness, which is a complete shambles, and also the speed rail that went nowhere.
Oh my God.
Exactly. That's the comedy gold. The brilliance is in the contrast. Gavin is performing like he's on a late-night infomercial. Flashy lines, polished delivery, confidence cranked to 11. But Anna Kasparian is calmly dismantling it all without ever raising her voice. It's the subtlety that hits hardest, that she's like a chess master watching someone play checkers on a board they don't even notice. Every polished phrase Gavin drops becomes material for her next surgical question. He's running on autopilot, reciting talking points that sound impressive, until she quietly anchors them in reality. And that's what makes it hilarious. The disconnect between what he thinks he's selling and what's actually standing there in the room, that it's not shouting, it's precision. Every sentence from Gavin sets up the next reality check. Every nod from Anna feels like a slow-building punchline. By the end, it's almost cruel comedy. The guy who thinks he's giving a masterclass in leadership is actually starring in a masterclass on being called out without even realizing it. If you want, I can weave your whole Gavin versus Anna sequence into one tight, viral-ready story with all the humor, suspense, and tension you've been building. It would read like a mini political thriller that's also hilarious.
Sense of what these local politicians really care about. And it's themselves, their own political careers, and it disgusts me. Gavin Newsom, in every single interview I've seen him do, has passed the buck, even though he is the governor of this state.
Yeah.
He is pathetic. He's a snake. He's like the slimiest Democratic politician, certainly on a local level. But what we have seen is mismanagement of epic proportions.
That's where the magic happens. Gavin's soaring optimism starts sounding like a balloon with a slow leak. Impressive at first glance, but the air slowly escapes the second you touch it. Anna doesn't need to yell or interrupt. She just puts a microscope on the details. Specificity is her weapon. It's like watching someone try to perform a high-wire act while she quietly tightens the rope below. Gavin tries to float above the questions, pivot, or throw a flashy talking point out, but Anna patiently reels it back in, layer by layer, until every empty abstraction is exposed. The comedy isn't in mocking him, It's in the tension between his confidence and her calm, relentless reality checks. Every overconfident claim gets politically laser-targeted without ever raising the volume. It's almost absurdly satisfying. The guy thinking he's running the show is slowly trapped by his own vagueness, while she casually walks through it like a librarian correcting overdue books. If you want, I can take all your Gavin versus Anna notes and craft a single, punchy, viral-ready narrative that hits like a suspenseful political showdown and a comedy special at the same time. It would weave all your moments into one unstoppable
It's very likely that he is going to point to his signature homeless housing policy as what will be a national model for solving the very real problem of homelessness in the United States. And if anyone is enticed by his campaigning on that, you should know that that signature policy, known as Project Home Key, has been riddled with fraud, scathing audits, and at this point,
Exactly. That's the heart of it. Gavin brought the scripted charm, all shine and rehearsed optimism. But Anna brought the slow-burning precision of someone who knows the answers aren't in the applause. They're in the details. The humor comes from how predictably chaotic it all is. We've seen politicians promise the moon, and journalists quietly, relentlessly ask, "Show me the steps." The audience recognizes the pattern. So every well-polished talking point hitting a wall of calm, unblinking logic is like a perfectly timed punchline. Anna didn't need to interrupt or raise her voice. Her weapon was consistency and specificity. Each follow-up made the previous answer look flimsy, leaving Gavin's polish floating uselessly above the facts. And that's what makes the whole scene both hilarious and satisfying. Someone finally treats the political theater like it's an accountability seminar, and the rehearsed optimism can't hide behind sparkle anymore. That if you want, I can take all your Gavin versus Anna notes and turn them into a single, tightly woven narrative that reads like a suspenseful, hilarious showdown from start to finish. It would highlight the comedy, tension, and precision without losing any of the nuance. Do you want me to do that?
real. The existence of climate change should not be utilized as a talking point in order to pass the buck, in order to deflect blame, in order to refuse to take any personal responsibility for how poorly this state has been governed for several years now. I am so disgusted with these people. I mean, Newsom is the governor. He's the top dog in California.
Exactly. That's the subtle brilliance of it. Most political takedowns rely on volume, theatrics, or dramatic gestures. Anna Kasparian did the exact opposite. She weaponized calm, precision, and silence. Each unanswered question became a spotlight on Gavin's vague promises, making his polished talking points feel hollow. The audience felt it, the slow realization that charm can't substitute for substance. Silence became a mirror reflecting the cracks in the narrative. No explosions, no yelling, just the unspoken truth that if your answers can't survive scrutiny, the applause doesn't matter. It's the kind of journalism that sticks in your head. Questions that don't fade when the broadcast ends, that linger and keep the conversation alive long after the cameras are off. If you want, I can merge all your Gavin/Anna segments into one dramatic, comedic, and suspenseful narrative that flows from start to finish, capturing the tension, humor, and intellectual punch. That would really make the show.
I now understand for the first time in my life why it takes journalists sometimes months to work on a story and publish a story. But with that in mind, I want to share the details of what I've learned and why we need to hold members of our own party accountable when they're engaged in wrongdoing, when they're engaged in policies that actually end up stealing money from taxpayers while simultaneously making the problem that they're supposedly trying to. Eventually, what he did was bail out PG&E, even though PG&E essentially started the fires in Paradise, California.
Right.
They couldn't be bothered to replace a $10 hook that was nearly 100 years old, and that hook was holding the power lines up.
Right.
So just think about that. These hooks are basically falling apart. Power lines are falling. We have dry conditions in California. And so a lot. And I think that as we head to the 2028 presidential election and basically deal with Gavin Newsom's campaigning, it's really important for people to understand what his leadership actually looks like. And one of the policies that he's very likely going to tout as what he sees as a national model is this Project Home Key policy. But fact of the matter is, it's just been one disaster after another.